Welcome to the Soulful Mystics podcast. I'm Steph.
And I'm Julie, and we are intuitive hypnotists, sharing our journey along the way. Hello, mystics. Welcome back to the Soulful Mystics podcast. I'm Julie, and in today's episode, we welcome back the amazing Mary for a super fun discussion on channeling light beings and a myriad of other fascinating topics. Season 2 is in full swing, and we have a lot in store for you. Catch a new episode every Wednesday. Your support means the world to us, so don't forget to like, follow, and share our podcast. And we are attempting to brave the world of TikTok. Connect with us there for a glimpse into our lives. I can be found at Soul Seeker Hypnosis and Steph at Soulful Stephanie Hypnosis. If you have a few extra moments in your busy schedules, we would really love it if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review. This year, we are really focusing on expansion and growth, and this really helps us to reach new listeners and friends. Tam B says, "Thanks, Steph and Julie. The episodes are interesting, and I learn something new each time. Always looking forward to the next one." Thank you, Tam B. Thank you. We love to hear from you. For more information on us, visit soulfulstephanie.com and soulseekerhypnosis.com. As a token of our gratitude, enjoy an exclusive 10% discount on both of our offerings using the coupon code SMP10, redeemable on both of our websites. Thank you for being an essential part of our podcast family. All right, enjoy the episode.
Today, we invited Mary, the amazing Mary, I like to say, to join us to talk about channeling.
The amazing Mary.
Yeah. No last name needed. I think having you talk about this with us was more for our benefit because we learn so much from you whenever we ask you these questions. Plus, that one time that or a couple times that you automatically just went into channeling.
You know, that's one of my, if I have a goal for the new year, to have more intentional channeling, more intentional information that I can decipher and understand what it is that I'm getting. I don't always know when it's coming. I'm not prepared for a question. I'll be sitting in my living room by myself and it'll happen. And it's more like, here, we're just giving you this information. And then afterward, you're like, oh, I wonder. I want to do it intentionally. I want someone to ask a question and have a direct answer. When information comes in, it's very random. You can't figure out the full meaning until you go back and then think through what was said or what you wrote or what you dreamed. I mean, it comes in all different kinds of ways and it's beautiful. I'm not complaining, but I think there's a way for your individual self, if you know yourself and you have the healing under your belt and you've done a lot of that work, that now we can do something more intentional because I'm ready. And I definitely believe that humanity needs that.
For sure.
And I get goosebumps when I say that.
Yeah.
And that's what I truly, truly believe in my heart, is that the information is always good for me and it helps me grow. But my gosh, there's always nuggets and pieces and things that those people around me and the people that I interact with, and maybe some people that I don't even know, would benefit from. All it takes is like a nugget sometimes to kind of get you down a path and make you think a different way and open yourself up. That's why I want it to be more intentional.
Before we get too far into our own experiences with channeling, I wanted to talk a little bit about what channeling is for those listeners who maybe they've never experienced it or maybe they've never even heard of it. I did a little bit of research on this because channeling has been something that I have been very interested in for the last few years. I feel like for myself, I have a hard time getting myself to that point. I definitely think there's been times where I have channeled, not necessarily in the way that I hope to, kind of like what you're talking about, Mary. So I have a book and it's called Opening to Channel, How to Connect with Your Guide. And it's by Anaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. In this book, it talks about what channeling is. With channeling, you can access all ideas, knowledge, and wisdom that is and ever will be known. When you channel, you access these higher realms by connecting with a high level guide or your higher self, or I think in other cases, any enlightened being that we are connected with, who steps down this higher vibration and makes it more readily available for you. Channeling involves consciously shifting your mind and mental space in order to achieve an expanded state of consciousness that is called a trance. Well, in hypnosis, we are basically going into the trance state, and that's why it makes it a little bit easier for us to make that connection. But that's just one way that we can do it. There's automatic writing or typing. I've had instances where I've just received like a download of information, and that's only happened a couple of times, but when it has happened, there is such a shift in my energy, meaning I feel like I'm filled with energy and excitement and clarity, and this is all feelings, sensations, and knowledge that I did not have a moment prior to receiving this download.
Because you're in flow with your higher self.
Exactly. And lately
Right.
I've been feeling very out of flow, which is probably why it's been a little bit of a struggle. I think with anything, it ebbs and flows.
Yep.
So,
You're human and you're here having this human experience, this life. You're not meant to be in 100% flow outside of your internal consciousness all the time. We're not meant to be in that state at all times. Most of us love that state and keep trying to find a way to get back to it once we've experienced it. But you have to accept that it's an ebb and a flow. Even dreaming, I have these most vivid, beautiful dreams that have such messages and are so like complete that my physical body was not even here. I was somewhere else. That's how real it is. And yet those ebb and flow. I can't have a dream just because I want a dream. And sometimes it's almost like crickets. I cannot gather any information from any dream. I'll go through a phase of that and almost get to the point of like, aren't you talking to me anymore? What is wrong with me? And really, there's nothing wrong with you. You're
Yeah.
still dreaming. You're still doing it. You're just not always meant to know everything consciously, but it's there. It's like when you do hypnosis and, oh my gosh, I think I fell asleep or I started to like doze off. It doesn't matter. All of the things that you were experiencing kind of pop out at different times, and accepting that is part of being in flow with life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's all good. It's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also how I view channeling is you kind of let a certain energy, guide, or entity have the focus of your attention. So you're allowing it to use your voice, you're allowing it to kind of have that focus of your actions as well. And then as you're acting in accordance to your higher self or an enlightened being, you feel powerful because it's like your ego is way back there and
Right.
your human identity is like at one with your entire essence, which is just, it feels magical. Mary, you said that this is something that you want to do this year, like a goal of yours. Julie and I were hoping to start a little series with you, whether it's channeling or really anything on the podcast. I think because a lot of us have to release, surrender, practice that first, then maybe start practicing connecting and channeling your higher self. And in hypnosis, for me, sometimes it feels more difficult. And I think just like Julie was saying, it's like the ebbs and flows of it. But with you that one time, it just happened so naturally. So it would be interesting, maybe because you've kind of mastered that channeling through your dream state,
Yeah.
channeling your higher self. So channeling a light being just kind of happened naturally. So we thought it'd be really cool to work with you in that state and to send out the beautiful
Yeah.
messages that come from.
Absolutely. This has been something I have wanted to do. And it's funny, it's almost like I manifested these girls that want to do this with me because really, I had this idea before kinship when I met you. I wanted to work with somebody that, because hypnosis is a great state to do that in. I've done it without trying in hypnosis.
Yep.
And I know what it feels like when it's happening in my body, when you're connecting with something that's a different vibrational state than you, whether that's a higher or lower frequency, I could feel it in my body. And when that is happening, like something is coming through me. It just is. I feel it. I can tell this is not just my own thoughts and maybe my imagination or whatever you think when you're under hypnosis, that somehow I got out of my own way and my consciousness opened up to let that in. I said, I can do this. The reason is it's not just messages for me, although I know it'll help me on my journey of healing in this lifetime.
Yeah.
But I know there's so much more that other people need, especially now when we look at our world and all of humanity and what we're going through as a collective. I think that it is more needed now than it ever has been before. And, believe in divine timing, right? I didn't start this years ago. I started this now, in these last few years, because we are at a very pivotal point in humanity. And as a collective, we create, right?
Yeah.
We create our world and how we live it. And we have to learn how to think outside the box, so to speak, expand our consciousness, know who we are as individuals and how much we are connected to each other. And I think channeling helps bring some of that knowledge through, like to reach people. Like I said, it only has to be a nugget of information, even if somebody's listening to the things that I'm told and I share, even if only 1% of that resonates with something that they have felt or seen or done or wondered about, then that's the seed and that will grow. And that's how we change the world. And that's how we ascend, right? The ascension is not something that's happening in the future. The ascension is happening now. There are more than one timeline going on now. Your world might look totally different than somebody else's because that is what you're creating. But if we collectively create a positive, beautiful, wonderful experience, then that momentum is out there in the ethers and that creates what everybody will feel. And that's what I want to do. Like that, it seems like a kind of lofty goal for somebody sitting in our kitchen, like reaching people and helping them, affect them in a positive way.
Yeah.
That's my goal, with the help of whoever my guides are, whoever those beings are, whatever I am. I don't know.
I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. And I think also, you were sent here for a reason. You have this connection for a reason. It's meant to be shared. And if Steph and I get to be a part of that sharing journey, I know I'm excited.
I'm so excited. And we have other listeners who are too.
Wonderful.
If you want to listen to the episode where Mary just naturally flowed into channeling a light being, it's episode 16 and it's called A Client Session Channeling a Light Being. It was really beautiful. We thought we were doing a past life regression. And then I was able to interview a light being through Mary, which was probably the coolest experience of my life. Not going to lie. This client, her name's Sarah, she had a reading by Jude, and Jude told her that she was a blue avian starseed and that she has the ability to channel them. She's not really sure how that would feel like. So that kind of gave us the idea to do this just to allow people a little insight into what it feels like and what it might be. And she was super excited that we were going to work with you. And maybe while you're in that state, I'll ask you about the blue avians because I've never heard of them.
I hadn't either until somebody, not Jude. She didn't give me that specific information, but a different person who was actually at that same retreat that Jude had brought in to do psychic readings. And her name is Hannah. She had done a reading for me. I went galactically to where these blue avians are, and there's a connection there with me. Ironically funny, because for a lot of my adult life, I have been so afraid of birds. Like,
me too.
I know it's an irrational fear of birds because when I was little, I would go and like take baby birds out of the hedge because you know how the mommy bird pushes them out and they have to learn to fly. Well, I would go in there and I remember like I'd have this baby bird in my hand and my dad would say, Mary, you have to put that bird back. I'm surprised the mother hasn't swooped down. And the mother never bothered me, but I thought I was supposed to like take care of and heal everything, right? When I was little. And then somewhere, I don't know, into adulthood, I became afraid of birds and now fascinated by birds and owls specifically. And they're so intense intense. But I'm like, what happened? What, I don't know where that shift came from. I don't know why I was afraid, and now I'm not, but I'm very fascinated by them. So it's funny that Hannah said something about the blue avians and some counsel, and I'm like, oh, that is really interesting. That was September 30th that I had my reading with Hannah. And that was the first time anybody could pinpoint what I'm connected to, because they are like light, and that electric blue light that I see and that color, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's what it is, because there's always blue. I don't understand it completely, but I'm definitely open to exploring that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. When she was talking about that electric blue color, remember in my last session with you, there was a blue hand. I remember I could see a blue hand. I don't even remember what it ended up being or what I thought it was, but I don't know, that blue hand just popped back into my mind as Mary was talking.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
it's
the blue
funny.
hand showed you how to heal yourself.
That makes sense.
I don't even remember. I've been on the struggle bus lately. I think just because the last few months have been really hectic and busy. So
Mhm.
I haven't been in flow lately, but things are slowing down. So hopefully
Yeah,
that'll change.
that's
But
how I feel too.
yeah, just wow.
Slowing down so I can get back inside somehow.
Yes. Oh my gosh, 100%. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited to do these channeling sessions. I think it would be really great if you're open to it, Mary, to have, even if any of our listeners want to email us a question that we could
Yes.
ask. And it can be about anything, it could be collective or something they're curious about, want more information on. And we'll start collecting those questions and then go into the
Perfect.
session and see what happens.
Because I never, when you know how you're supposed to set the intention or have the question, I struggle with a specific question or a specific intention when I go under hypnosis,
Yeah.
because there's like, I want to go under and see who comes through, and then I'll know what questions I want to ask. But you can't when you're under. They tell you, anything that else that you want to Mary to know or something. It's like, wish I had known this was going to happen, because I'd have more questions. But
Right. I
Yeah.
feel the same way sometimes. Like when Steph does a session for me, I don't usually give her questions to ask my spirit guides. I just tell her, you know me well. Use your intuition and ask away.
Definitely. And I really think your intuition, as somebody who's providing the service, that makes the session totally different than with somebody else. I really think that the practitioner doing it brings something to the table. Even though I can get into a hypnotic state without a long introduction, to actually be in that channeling state, I need a longer introduction. And it's almost like it takes time to get that egoic part of you to like take a nap, go to sleep, relax, Mary safe, and then open up the channel part, like, and just let it flow in. It takes a little bit to get there. That's the difference between like our group hypnosis that we've been doing in kinship, is like, yes, I was at a point where information could come in, but I wasn't deep down a lot of the time. And sometimes I think that's what I want, is to be deep down and
Yeah.
just to be the channel and just to let it come.
For sure. And I think it's a good point though that you make, because Julie had the idea to create a script where we end up going higher, like even higher than what we do in regular hypnosis. I had something written on my website that kind of described consciousness, and it's as if, like your ego or your human consciousness is one floor, and then
Yep.
you can elevate to other levels, you can explore different levels. And then I heard recently, channeling, if we can become the antenna, or imagine yourself as the antenna, we can actually tune into the radio station of our brain to access higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same kind of idea, except imagine yourself as an antenna. We can access tons of channels, tons of them, just like a radio station. It's when we get there, we need to surrender. Like you said, it takes a little bit longer sometimes to really put the ego to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can pull in the information without judgment. And that's something that I find people who first start hypnosis struggle a bit with, because they
Yep.
they try to analyze and they try to, oh, that doesn't make sense. Or, like those judgments are coming in when you have a bit more experience. I mean, I'd like to say when you have a bit more experience, but like recently, I think Julie and I both have been questioning what's been coming in, because it's been so different these past few times, so different than usual. So I think it's allowing, acknowledging, and then as the person who's facilitating, I mean, when I worked with you, you didn't have any of those signs of judgment or anything. You really just let it flow. So I think that is key, is to just learn, practice, trusting your intuition, accepting what comes in, and then moving forward. We don't need to analyze it as much as we tend to do.
When I had a session with Gina, the very first time I saw those blue light beings, my guides told me, when you can bring your consciousness outside of your body, that is when you can travel. That is when you can journey. It's more of a metaphorically bringing your consciousness out. But when you can get out of inside of this vessel and just be the consciousness is really what they were saying. But when you can bring that outside of yourself, that's when everything opens up to you. And that's what they were trying to tell me. How many years ago was that the first time? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I first met her and did a hypnosis session with her. And it takes a while for this human to kind of catch on. It's like, we've been telling you. We told you that way back then when we popped in. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I figured that out now. Okay.
When you did this session with Steph, if you can remember back then or back with Gina, what did it feel like to you
When I was
when you were
channeling,
Were you aware of the conversation that was going on? Did it feel like you were just kind of hanging out in the background? Do you remember?
I remember the first time it happened with Gina because it was like left field. This was not even, neither one of us had planned on it, right?
Yeah.
I remember the physical feeling in my body. That was the first thing that kind of got my attention under hypnosis. I felt from like my chest down and up and down, like if there was a cord inside of me. And I felt this vibration going up and down and up and down. And it was intense there, even though I couldn't open my eyes, but my eyes were like fluttering. Like I could feel them, so much movement. I wanted to be able to lift my hands up and lay it on there and make it stop. So those physical things were happening. It was hard for me actually because of that vibration inside. It was hard to actually talk. The information was coming in my head, but actually to get my voice to work. With Gina, at one point, she asked if they could put a barrier or just step back a little bit so that I could physically speak, because it was like they were so close. And they did. They either like kind of moved back so that my throat would relax, because it was really hard to talk. And you mentioned, Julie, that you can't remember a lot. When I come out of a hypnosis that I know I have been deep enough to bring something through, I cannot remember. It's almost like a dream that you know you had, but you can't remember the details of. And I'm always so grateful when those sessions are taped or there's notes taken, because in the subconscious, it'll like when I read that or hear that, I'm like, okay, now I remember how I was feeling in that moment. I did a past life regression the first time with Gina. And then we went where your guides could come in and talk to you. And the very first time that I ever did a hypnosis session for a past life, we went and talked to my guides. I started feeling that vibration in the eye flutter a little bit, not intensely, but like something changed from the past life to going to my guide. The first thing that they said to me is, we're all aliens somewhere. And I don't even remember what her question was, but it certainly had nothing to do with that. When I came out of the hypnosis, I could journal like that whole past life. Like I remembered the sensations and the smells and the heat and the dust and the horses. And I remembered everything until we got to my guide. And then it was like a freaking blank. And I remember emailing Gina and asking her, I'm like, is this how it works? I can't remember. And yet I remember feeling physically different and my eyes were fluttering, and she said, and sometimes you get into a deep hypnosis, that's, a state. And I'm like, wow. But then the next one that we had is when those blue light beings came through and really gave me some information. And that was super intense. Oh, this is how it feels in me. Now I get it. It's a good thing that you tape it and take notes, because I don't recall, but it would be great if I could recall consciously when I am channeling. And I think that's something that you have to surrender to and learn too, is to just open the consciousness up and be okay with it, the information. And it's a trust thing, right? It's a trust to open yourself up to something unseen, really not totally understood, trusting yourself, and that you have boundaries and you're very strong internally and able to do that. and letting something come through to you. So it's a trust. It's like building a relationship with anybody. And I think it's taken the 3 to 4 years that I've started is there's a better trust. There's a knowing that I'm safe and this is good. I mean, you feel the good, but you're still like, I'm not trusting this totally. It's a great next step for me is to do these hypnosis sessions and just see what they bring through. Maybe it'll be some little tidbits that we all need to hear, I hope.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting too to see if there's a difference between when I facilitate or when Steph facilitates to see like what comes through too. That'll be really interesting. And I want to say I have experienced the eye movement. I think that's one of the most common things. I know a lot of my clients have experienced that as well. For me, the spirit guide portion, I think we are all channeling in some way, shape, or form when we get to that part. I know for me, it seems like I have such a hard time articulating the information that's coming out. My eyes are usually going crazy. And Steph is usually like, well, you sound great. I can hear and understand everything. But for me, in the moment, I feel like I'm not getting the information out. So it's just really interesting to me. I have tried the exercises, the opening to channel book, when I'm by myself and I get to the part where I'm trying to speak out loud, but I'm not speaking to anybody, nothing comes out. There's exercises that help you to raise your vibration. That was when I met my first spirit guide. So I had dreamt about him, wasn't sure if it was a guide or not. I got into this book. I did the exercises. I met him. His name is Johnny. And the first time I met him in a dream, he reminded me of the movie Grease, the little greaser guys, how they dressed in their leather jackets and their sneakers and their cuffed jeans, slick back hair. That's what he looked like. So in the dream, I knew he was a spirit. I have chills all over my body right now. Just talking about it. But then when I did this exercise where I was purposely raising my vibration and I met him in the light, it was like he took my soul and like spun me around in a big hug and oh, chills everywhere. The main thing I remember from that experience was what kept repeating in my mind was my soul remembers. So my soul remembered him. The information I got, I believe he was somebody from a past life. I don't know if it was a partner, a family member, or what, but I just remember like my soul remembers. I don't know. It'd be fun to explore Johnny a little bit more because I don't know that he's come up in any other hypnosis. Maybe I think one when I was in training, but other than that, he hasn't. So it would be fun to channel a little bit more from him and get to know him.
I've only gotten a name of one guide. I don't know. I've been trying. I tried. That was the first thing I tried to do was develop this relationship with my guides and stop ignoring them. Said it's like working in an office with a bunch of people and you stay in your freaking cubicle and you really don't know anybody. And yet they're right next to you all the time, all day long. It's like, why do we not have relationships with, we feel them. So many people feel that presence, when there's an intervention, something happens and you feel like you weren't alone in that moment. You feel them. We all do. And I remember it. I tried, meditation and trying to want a name. Like I wanted a name of a guide. And our guides really don't have names. That's something that we give them so that we can separate them from the other energies around us. But it wasn't this past February. It was like 3 or 4 years ago, February. So I was making these little royal icing transfers because I was going to make a heart cookie that looked like a box of chocolate. So I am sitting here and just repeating the same thing over and over. And I didn't have the TV on, did not have any podcasts on, no music on. And all of a sudden it started in my head and it said Malachi. And I kept going, Malachi, and it kept repeating and so finally it made me stop what I was doing. Who is Malachi? How do you even spell Malachi? Where did I get this name? So I get on my phone trying to spell Malachi, and it's some kind of messenger. Before Jesus was born and all of that, he told of the coming of that. Even before, that's who Malachi was. And when I read that, I'm like, oh my God, that's your name. I know who Malachi is. It was the most persistent repeating Malachi, like to get my attention. It doesn't even stop there. I said, okay, I don't think I'm going to sit in silence anymore. After I kind of got up, got a drink of water, washed my hands, I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to put a podcast on. I was looking through my podcasts and I set my phone down. And now my podcast app and my music app are two different apps on my phone. All of a sudden, the music came on, the song came on, and it was a Katie Lang song. And I don't even have her on my Pandora. Like, I don't even know where that came from. But it was the song Constant Cravings. And if you listen to the lyrics, and I would ask you to just like Google Katie Lang, it was about like searching for answers through the ages. People have been on this journey of searching through, and it popped out. I'm like, what in the heck? How did that even happen? I don't even listen to her, but I'm like, oh, I like this song. And I was listening to the words. Okay, validation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Malachi. Okay, I get it.
It's so
You're giving
cool.
me information through the ages. And I really have understood that now Malachi has been with me all of my lifetime. He is that primary that knows me, all of me. He knows
Mhm.
all of my human lives and my other lives. He's been with me. So,
Amazing.
It's
and he
amazing.
gave me a name. So I'm like, thank you, Malachi. And I always say he's always here on the left of me.
Oh, I love that.
That's where I sense him the most.
That's so cool. I do that too, though, where I mostly it's in my dreams. I'll wake up with a song stuck in my head.
Mm.
The one that has been popping up through my spiritual awakening is, and I had YouTubed it because I can't find it anywhere else. I can't say the words like though I could feel it, or I don't know how to describe what's going on in my mind
That
right now.
total eclipse of the heart.
Yes, thank you. So through my healing experience this past like 2 years where it's been really intense, that song I would wake up to in the morning stuck in my head. And I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to music. Like it's been a couple of years now that I just don't listen to music. This song was stuck in my head. I YouTubed it. I watched the music video and it was shocking as to how much it related to a few situations that I've been through. So one was the past life regression that Julie did for me regarding my migraines, and I was in a mental institution. In this music video, it reminded me of the way that the setting was and the windows and everything. It was just a releasement, and I forget what eclipses stand for, but I remember Googling it and being like, this is exactly what I'm going through. And then sometimes I'll wake up with a song that I don't know, I don't listen to, stuck in my head, and I feel like that's the summary of my dream. The summary of the dream work that I just did, that's the song of the summary. I don't know. It's really interesting how it keeps happening.
So an interesting connection that you're making too with the song and the dream work. That's really
Yeah.
fascinating.
I mean, the only reason I made that connection is because I wake up singing it in my mind. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how? Like we're not listening to music at night. It has to be some kind of. But yeah, it's really interesting how our mind works, especially in the dream state. I
I
am
love
trying to look
that.
into that too. I had a client recently who described his session with me and he went into the upside down world or the underworld. The way he described it is it's like the spiritual realm, which is also our dream state realm. I was like, oh, thinking of in our dream world, we're kind of in the spiritual realm of things. I never thought about it that way. And I think that's
Mhm.
really interesting to consider. It's been a rough morning. My brother's dog passed away this morning, and I know, like my heart, he had such a great connection to this dog, Lila. I remember going to pick her up with him when she was just a puppy, and I had just gotten Roxy. I had such a strong connection with her as well. And I went over there for New Year's. I felt like I was intoxicated. So my ego had left the building. I was just hanging out with her and I felt like she was telling me she was ready. When I woke up the next morning, I was like, what do you do with that information? You know, like maybe I was just because she's getting old and I could see Roxy and I kind of relate them together because they lived together for a while. So he had to rush her to the emergency this morning and then she passed around 2:30. And then I couldn't sleep after. And then Cooper walked over from his bed to my bed and I had all the dogs on top of me. Then I thought maybe that was a channeling because you can channel animals in Mother Nature and like Julie's
Sure.
channeled trees before. You know, like we can do that rather than seeing it as them giving us messages. It's almost like we're allowing their energy to take full focus within us. And that's what I did when I was like cuddling her. And that's the message I got. And then I feel like this morning when I got the news and I was in bed, I channeled or reached out to my dogs just kind of with my energy. Cooper got off the bed and wanted to come on my side of the bed. I think that we all have that ability in us and we're acting on on it every day. We just don't realize that it's channeling, or we don't realize that it's intuition or something. I don't know, but that popped up today, this morning, and I was like, I'm really excited to see you guys so that we can talk about this, because you don't
I
have that many people you can talk to about this kind of weird, woo-woo, amazing stuff.
And I honestly sit here and think it's not even woo-woo. It's just who we are. And I, I think all of us are. All humans have the ability. And those animals are so in touch with their intuition. That's how they navigate through life, and they don't ever unlearn that. It is a part of them. And I think with us humans, we were born with that too, but we unlearn things. It's the programming.
Yeah, I read somewhere too that exactly what you said, the programming, the fear. And so, like, our mind is limited and allows us to respond to things based on those conditionings, fears, and programming. And then we try to mitigate those things by thinking and observing and reacting in a specific way that will avoid the negative, what we deem negative. So, if it's a fear, what can I do to avoid experiencing that fear? And animals don't have that. Nature doesn't have that. Sit there in silence sometimes. Like, sometimes when I do too, all this weird, Julie too, I know when she does dishes or something, she messages me with all these amazing downloads.
Isn't it amazing? You're doing something and all this amazing. And I literally sometimes will stop what I'm doing and jot something down that's been kind of going through my head on repeat, because I know that phrase or those little thoughts will come back at some point and have a bigger picture. But it's like, okay, this nudge is happening. And that's why I say you'll see like little notes. Like I'll have my cookie order and how many of this, and then all of a sudden there's this phrase on the other page. I'm like, oh my goodness, that came. I remember when that came to me. I have to get it out. It's information. And it's not like it's an outside voice. It's just sort of like boop, a thought, and then a repetitive thought that kind of gets my attention, internally gets my attention. And then I'll put my focus on, I'm like, what? And it's not alarming. That's the other thing about my intuition. It doesn't scare me. It's not like an alarming, weird thought. Even those that download of the fear, and it had to do with disclosure too, they're controlling the narrative and how we're going to respond when aliens do just like say, okay, I'm not in your peripheral anymore. I'm here front and center, even though they are front and center. But whoever they are, that wants to control humanity, are already planting the seeds of fear and doubt in anything that comes from off-world. So you have this off-world beings coming to us, and they're already trying to control our reaction to that, to it not happening to somebody else, but it's happening to me and you and you and you. And it just is. You do live in a world where we can't even accept the differences within our own race.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your skin looks different than mine, and you live in this country and not this country. And, all of the craziness that was also created outside of us. That was not humanity. Humanity is internal, and we know the answers, and we know.
And we're discovering oneness. I heard somewhere we're going to start embodying the no mind, choosing to not be our ego and act as one, because that's what we are.
We're interconnected to every living thing.
Yep.
Every living thing. I don't care if it's a tree or your dog or the other person sitting across from you. We are interconnected to all things. And if you can just kind of wrap your mind around that, what I do to me, I do to you. How I hurt me, I hurt you. If you could just understand that basic thing, you would change the way you view the world around you, and treat yourself better, and treat other people better, and be kind to animals. Open your heart to a forest of trees and the beautiful sky, and because we're connected to it all. There's no difference. We're all just these vibrations, and we look solid and we look separate, but we're not. We're all just vibrating at different frequencies, and we're not even a solid thing. We're all just vibration and energy, and that's all we are in mass form. Yes. It's like when I was that little girl and I looked at my hand and I said, what is life? Because I wanted to understand it somehow. And I floated, and then the answer came, and it scared me because I did not understand. What do they mean? It's nothing. It's not nothing. it's not real. What do you mean it's not real? Because it isn't. It's just one state of who you are. It's a mass state of who you are. It's an, experience for your soul. But boy, that was a big answer for a 10-year-old. I just didn't understand that, but I do now. Everybody's connected. We're all like the same organism or something. And I love that because it puts everything in perspective. Everything throughout my day, throughout my life, all the good things that happen, all the bad things. But there's nothing really good or bad. I mean, there are experiences, yes, some that I consciously wouldn't choose, but maybe I already have on some level. I don't care what it was. Your soul has an opportunity there. You gave yourself that opportunity to grow and to learn. And all of those feelings and things you learn, that's the only thing that goes with you after you leave this life. Nothing else comes with you as your soul. It's just the feelings and the thoughts and the experiences. And it really boils down to the love that you take. And that's the only thing that comes with us. And it goes into every lifetime with you. All of those things that you've learned in your soul, somewhere along the line already knows. Pretty remarkable. I think it's remarkable.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that's a message both Steph and I have recently been getting in hypnosis too, is that we are all one, and not just receiving the message, but also feeling it.
It's big, isn't it? When you really try to wrap the conception that we're all interconnected, when you really sink into that, it takes your breath away. It's not just an idea I'm saying, I'm really feeling it. And it's pretty impactful. It'll take your breath away.
I did the entity removal for kinship with Gina, but there was one scene where I was speaking with a man entity and he refused to let me see him and refused to let me know his name. We were asking for that. And he said, if I tell you my name and I show you my face, you're going to forget everyone else here around me who is just as important as me. So you're going to see us as one by not seeing any of us individually. That hit me like I have goosebumps everywhere because that makes so much sense. It's easier for us as humans to refer to somebody by their name. Why don't we just talk and treat each other as if they are me and I am them and we're just one? Even with our spirit guides, it's really fun to know a name. And sometimes that's why they don't show us their face and their name, because it just feels too human. We need to elevate from that and see each other as one. And I think by him doing that, it really showed me how to do that in everyday life and how to really apply that belief. Even though it's hard sometimes when you have people who you don't resonate with, we're still one with them, even though, their beliefs and values are very different from ours.
We're all a piece of the same, right? I don't know if you believe in God or what your religion is or the source of where we started from, but we're all part of that main source, or whatever you want to call that. If you want to call it God, or it doesn't matter. The religion has nothing to do with it. It's just that, no, you come from that big source, that feeling of love. That's what we came from. That's what every single one of us came from. The good, the bad, the ugly. It does not matter the things that, quote, you did as this human, because that interconnectedness is also, you have to have the negative, the bad experience. You have to have the beautiful, wonderful experience. How can you know the difference without? That's how we learn as a human. That's how we grow. We refer to this as Earth School. And when we leave here, we'll be like, wow, that is a tough college. Mother, holy crap. Because we come here and we can't remember anything of who we are, right? As a soul. And then we're expected to navigate through. And these are the beautiful lessons that I laid out for myself when I was la, la, la. Everything is good. And then I come into this life and I'm like, what? Who am I? What am I? And now we're getting all this programming thrown at. I'm like, Jesus, you need to give me a leg up on this shit if you want me to grow. So,
ain't that the truth?
It is. I know we do it for a reason, but I have no fear of death at all.
Me neither.
I don't want to die. It's more like the dying than the being dead.
Yeah.
That I'm afraid. Like, if there's fear anywhere or a little angst, it's about the event and how it would leave the people behind, but not not what's happening to me, not where I'll go. I can't even imagine.
That's the same how I feel about our animals passing, right? Like
Yes.
Lila, it was tough knowing that she was in the hospital, really suffering, and being away from the family. She had Jay, at least, my brother. It's not the crossing over part. Now I feel better knowing that she has moved on because
Yeah.
I know she's up there free and running around and causing, actually, she wouldn't be causing a ruckus because she was literally the best dog ever.
Oh,
But I feel like, you're reconnected to your home. And sometimes when we feel homesick as humans and we don't know why, because we're like, I don't know where my home is, but we still feel it, kind of like in your session, Mary, with the
Yes.
channeling the light being was, I feel like I'm missing home. That's
I
why,
know that
because
feeling.
it's like you're so ready to go back there, but in divine timing, when it's your time, you got to live your life as the human that you are. But I can say, when I say I'm excited to go back home, doesn't mean that I want to go prematurely. It just means that
All right.
I am excited to be reconnected with
Me too.
my root.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of it at all. I know it's going to be the most alive I
And I
am.
want to haunt some people a little bit before I go, like
You
I
know
just
what? I have thought that too. I'm like, but can I just still come back?
I just
Visit
need a
you in your
day.
dreams and like,
Yeah, I think you can.
Steph,
Visiting in
Julie, come
dreams.
on, come with me, come play with me.
I
Yeah,
think we
just don't
kind
say it
of,
like that, please.
yeah.
Don't say it like
I read this book on Earthbound Spirit. It was talking about how there is a window of time before we go into the light. And this is based off of one person's experience. This is her gift. She can't see spirits that have crossed over. She can only see and works with earthbounds. She talked about how there is like a window of time for a spirit to cross into the light. And she said if they don't go at that time, they can always go into someone else's light. And I'm using quotations there. The funny thing about that, it's not funny, but I read that book and I told my husband and son, when you die, you better go into the light. Like I told them, you go into the light. You
See,
don't stick around here. And I
I'd be
said,
the opposite.
and if
Like,
you
you stick
don't go
around.
into the light, well, I know I want them to evolve and
Oh yeah,
continue.
I
Right.
know. I mean,
And
I want them to evolve too, but I also want them to haunt you a little bit.
that's through my mediumship abilities. You don't have to taunt me per se. But I do tell my husband that, man, if I go before you,
Oh, you're
you
in
will
for a
be
rude
back.
awakening there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that period is before we have to go to the light, but you're going to know that I'm still around.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
it was something with a certain number of days after the last memorial service. Yeah.
After your last memorial service?
Yeah, so sometimes, for example, soldiers, they pass overseas. There's a period of
Oh,
time to take to bring them home and have the service. She said the window of time to cross over. And this is all, like I said, based off of this one book.
People have basically let you emotionally go and know you're gone. But that makes me wonder if you were murdered and nobody knows where you are. How long do you
that's
got then?
that's who's haunting everybody then.
If they were murdered and it wasn't resolved in the
Yeah,
family and the people that loved them or knew them or cared about whoever,
it's an
the
interesting
living
thought.
souls are still holding on to them being here and keeping them here, maybe with their
Yeah,
emotional state of, no, she's not unalived, she's somewhere.
and wanting
We
to
haven't
resolve it
found her
somehow.
body and we don't know what happened to her or him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we keep them alive. We can keep
yeah.
them earthbound by those very strong emotions.
Hmm.
And that's
I
how the
wonder.
mediums would be able to release their soul, right? Because they're acknowledging that
Right.
they're, so even
Like
if the
I see
body
you,
is
right, I
so
see you,
interesting.
I show me your pain, and so that
Hmm.
we can have a resolution to this moment. Isn't that it funny, because I was just thinking today that so much about healing is because somewhere along the line you got stuck in a moment, and that moment you held on to somewhere and it manifests inside you in your body as
Yeah.
dis-ease and pain or something chronic. It all goes back to, I'm stuck in a moment, or I held on to it and made myself. It's stuck right here in my body, wherever that is. It could be your heart, could be your throat, could be your sacrum. It depends on the chakras and what that was. But so much of not being able to move and grow has to be about being stuck in a moment somewhere. And if
Yeah.
you can get back to that moment, you can look at it and let it go and sort of transmute that whole thing.
And that's exactly what we do in hypnosis. So that book is called When Ghosts Speak. It's Understanding the World of Earthbound Spirits by Mary Ann Winkowski. Super good book.
That's an interesting book.
And that's it for today's episode. Until next time, stay curious.
Stay mystical.